RADICI Taurasi Riserva is probably the best known label, best known wine that we have worldwide, and the most celebrated and appreciated and awarded by the critics in several parts of the world. And it's become also, I would say, an ambassador of the Italian wine movement in the world. It's one of the labels that is used to identify a wide territory. This is the territory of Aglianico, the grape coming from the Greek origin and brought in southern Italy before Rome, in the period of the Magna Graecia colonization. So Taurasi, DOCG, in this case Radici, meaning roots, and in the Riserva version. With the Riserva version we usually identify the wine that is dedicated to the maximum potential of aging, longevity, and the capability of aging means also a huge complexity and a beautiful evolution in the bottle. The characteristic of a Taurasi is the capability of age in a perfect condition even after 50 years and more. The success of this label, the label of the Riserva, goes back, 1 century at least, even more, but we have different periods in which this wine gets its success in the world. Here we have a bottle of the 1968 Riserva Montemarano selection. It's one of the 3 selections that my father produced in 1968, a legendary bottle, a legendary vintage for Taurasi that gave this appellation a great success all over the world. And it's a bottle that is usually dedicated to the big collection and auctions. But we also have in this family Caveau bottles going back to the 50s of last centuries, the 40s, the period of the war. This is a 1941, this is a 39, and then a 34, and this is a 1928 of the same wine. These are bottles that we have the chance to taste in vertical tasting, and they are in a perfect shape. They are still very, alive and vivid, and they give a beautiful representation after 70, 80 or 90 years of aging of the territory and of the grape variety. So Radici Taurasi Riserva is an excellent wine to give the idea of where we live, in the middle of the mountains in Irpinia. It's produced in Montemarano estate, in the upper part of the estate, in a very cold environment at about 600 meters of elevation. The grapes are harvested in the first half of November. We have a period of maceration that is about 20 to 25 days under temperature control, and then we have a period of wood refining that is very long for this wine. It's about 3 years, even more, 3 years and a half, sometimes even more, depending on the characteristic of the harvest. And we prefer to use the big casks. At least 60% is in the big casks because we want to preserve the character of this varietal. And after this long period, we release this wine usually after 6 years of cellar, just to give you the idea of the investment that we make on this wine, on the Riserva of Radici Taurasi. At the tasting, you have this nice violet, the cherry, the spices, but the tasting profile is a little darker if you compare it, and deeper if you compare it with the Radici Taurasi black label that is a little younger and it's a little rounder and softer. In this case, you have these flavors of small dark berries that is very typical of an important Radici Taurasi Riserva, an important wine made from Aglianico in the best conditions of selection of grapes, maturation of the grapes, and then of winemaking process. Radici Taurasi Riserva.